Welcome, viewers. Welcome back on You Are Invincible. I hope you all are doing fantastic and taking good care of yourselves, your family, and your friends. Today, we have an amazing personality who has seen quite a bit in his own life towards his journey to higher consciousness. He is a podcast expert. I'm going to share a bit about him. He has an amazing journey. 3 years ago, he was silently working on his career, not really wanting anything different. He became conscious of a burning need to be more. He started the podcast to grow quickly and become rich and famous. He became that guy looking for sponsorships and a quick way to earn a buck for the podcast. He busted himself and nearly lost everything because of the need to prove himself. Then he became aware of what he truly is, a source of higher consciousness, that the small self was creating goals, and those goals would never end. He would continue killing himself trying to crush these goals that weren't real. The goals could produce physical rewards, but none would ever fill that bucket. The podcast has taught him how to be in the moment with some pretty righteous people from all walks of life. It is a grand success. It has been hard, but to give yourself fully to someone you don't know and to have an authentic conversation, no judging, just connection and flow. These were some of the best conversations he has ever had. And he also says life is not about how much you obtain, it's about how much you learn. He's none other than Trey Downes, and his podcast is called Your Superior Self. So, without further ado, I'm going to invite Trey on our channel. You are invincible all the way from the USA. Hi, Trey, how are you doing?
Very well, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. A lot of gratitude for taking out time and being with us on our channel.
Yeah, absolutely. I thank you guys for having me. It's a great honor to be here with you today.
Fantastic. I want to start off by asking you your journey. It has been spectacular. And why the podcast, Your Superior Self? How did that come into being? And what is your motivation behind it?
So it's kind of it's a loaded question, but it's a great one nonetheless. I found myself wanting more. I got to a point where I was craving something. I couldn't put my finger on it. Um, and it was, I haven't really told too many people this. So, I remember having a dream or like a
Mm,
vision of a podcast. Like I was a big fan of podcasts. Like I just love them. I love how you can listen to them at any time of day and really gain a lot of knowledge from them. And I woke up one night after having a dream about being a host, and that's how I was inspired. The universe kind of planted that seed for me about obtaining this type of platform, and but I never thought anything of it. I just let it go and put it in my back pocket and proceeded to go through life. It wasn't until like that Thanksgiving where we were having family dinner. It was like 2018, and my brother-in-law
okay.
Joe was kind of like um, talking about his platform and his business and where he envisions himself to go. And he's a natural born speaker. Like he's very inspirational. And I was like, man, you have to have a podcast. Like this is just something, the next step for you. This is what you need to do. And he was like, no, you need to have a podcast. And I was like, you know what? If I start one, you got to start one. And so it kind of started out as like a bet or, if you do it, I'll do it kind of thing. And, nonetheless, here we are today. I'm like 150 episodes in, and I never imagined it would take me to where I'm at today.
That's fantastic. 150 episodes, and all of them have been so inspiring. I have been able to hear a few of them. I haven't got the time to hear all of them, but trust me, I'm going to hear all your 150 episodes because viewers, what I really like about his episodes, it's so real. It's not in some vague world that it's a mystical thing, but how you live your life right now and how you deal with it with your present self and change your mindset. And he also delves a little bit into neuroscience. If I'm right, Trey, you do delve into that part of science, which is amazing. So viewers, please get on to his podcast. And yeah, the next question I would like to ask you, Trey, is in your bio, you talk about the journey in which there is the last piece of puzzle of the American dream, self-actualization. Could you please elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah. So if you guys are psychology enthusiasts like me, Abraham Maslow has the hierarchy of needs. And the last box up
Mm-hmm.
top is self-actualization. So at the very bottom of the
Mm-hmm.
pyramid is like survival and things like that, where throughout your life you try to obtain certain things, and then once you obtain them, you move on to the next. The last
Mm-hmm.
box is self-actualization. So a lot of Americans, and I'm not 100% like how many other cultures are like this, but they tend to, once they obtain that American dream, they start looking for other externals to help them realize what they are. And I feel like that is the last puzzle, or the piece of the puzzle, right? Like you are trying to obtain whatever this idea of success, and success is supposed to be topped off with this cherry on top self-actualization. Like when you get to where you're at, then everything will come to you, and you'll know what the secret meaning of the universe is. But it's not how that works. So a lot of Americans, especially people that I was like this as well. If I obtain this, then I'll receive that. If I got the house, if I get the car, if I, um, if I, you know, I get the awards, the promotions, then I'll understand more about what life is. But that never came for me, and so like
Mm.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization was like it started me down this road once I obtained all those things and realized that that wasn't the key to your inner knowingness. Like I started turning inward. Like it's been a long journey for me. Like it really has. Like it hasn't been one thing. It's been a bunch of things that have like, and I'm still learning. So it's not like I'm a finished product either. And that's the premise of the podcast. Really, it's if you go from start to finish, if you go from start episode 1 to 150, you'll see my journey. And that's why I wanted to do that. Like you can map out where I'm at basically.
Right, right. And about the self-actualization, what you're saying, I feel it's not only about you or me or the Americans or the Indians. I feel most of the people around the globe, they somewhere, some part of their life, they've always had this thing that, okay, if I get this, I'm going to be successful. If I get this, I'm going to be happy. But the actual thing, what you exactly said, is turning yourself inwards. If you actually start to believe and understand who you really are, and if you're self-sufficient from within, automatically you'll start attracting all the other things, the materialistic things or whatever it is, different parts of life, which would again lead towards a beautiful life.
Yeah, but I didn't know what that was. Like I've always heard that. Like I started this journey of reading spiritual texts and mystical texts, and every single one of them hinted towards going inward, right? Like to find an answer. I didn't know how to do that. Like I've always,
Right.
I started taking it as like just a slogan of religious like concepts. Like I was just like, all right, go inward. I didn't know what that was. And it wasn't until
Mm.
I started putting in practices of like meditation and things like that, where I started experiencing things for myself. Intelligence can only take you so far. After
True.
that, after that, it's up to the person and their individual um, conversations with God is when you start to experience it on a different level for yourself.
That's very true. I totally agree with you. Absolutely. The next question that I would like to ask you, during the course of your journey, how did you come to realize that materialistic things are not important in life, and why?
Oh, because going back to the small self, like the ego, it tells you that if you have a certain thing, if you obtain these things that are brand names, if you have that brand awareness and you get these, and people will look at you more respectable, they will look at you as successful. And that was all inner driven at the time when I was ego driven. It wasn't until I started learning more about psychology and neuroscience where I started looking at what the chemicals in your body are doing. We're just programmed, right? The ego has programmed us over the evolution of mankind to want to be a, the alpha, right, or to be the leader, or
Yes.
to be a part of the group as a whole as survival. And when I started looking at the things around me, materialistic things, it's just those things that are kind of giving us the idea that, hey, you belong now, right? Like you have that Mercedes,
Mm,
you have that Lexus, you have the Nikes, you have the Reeboks. Now you're part of the group, but that is meaningless. It's empty. It's fake. It's nothing. It's just your
mm.
brain playing a trick on you. It's the ego saying you have to have these things. It's not important at all. Again, it's going to the external for that happiness, which doesn't exist outside of yourself.
That's totally true. Absolutely. And most of the people nowadays, because of the social media, they've got into this rut of thinking, okay, we are following these many personalities, and all of them are showing off what you're doing. That is getting into the mindset of the younger generation, also maybe the mid 20s and the early 30s, who start thinking this is what life is. And somewhere the responsibility of the people who are doing it is not there, and leading other people to see and understand, ki, oh, we are living this life, whereas that might be a lie. I mean, it's quite unfortunate that people are not able to see through of what life really is, and they run behind this so-called superficial stuff and the materialistic stuff.
Yeah, they don't know what's going on. They don't understand what's happening. They don't understand why their bodies are doing what they're doing. They don't understand the dopamine hits, the cravings. We're all addicts. I mean, we're every single one of us are addicts. You're addicted to the things that you did today because they make you feel good. When you're running late to work, you feel stress. You put yourselves in these situations because you feel that. You think that's a part of you. It's not who you are. Those emotions aren't who you are. So social media, every time you get a like, Facebook, Google, and all these different platforms know exactly what to give you. And it's when you put up a picture, it could be the best picture in the world. It could be the Mona Lisa of pictures. But if you don't get 50 likes, you feel like it's crap. You don't think you like it's worth anything,
Exactly.
right? It's the dopamine. You expect things. It's the, it's the you have to understand your neuroscience and the chemicals that are released in your body for people to really fully understand what depression and anxiety is. I struggle with depression and anxiety quite a bit, but once I understand what chemicals are being released in my body, what's happening, then it gives me the power, empowers me to be able to kind of, take a break, step back, and kind of set my mind in a place where I can counterbalance those chemicals being released.
Absolutely. At the end of it, it's yourself who can actually take control of what's happening rather than the environment controlling us. And if people start to understand this, start delving deeper into their own life, the entire world would be a different place than what it is at the moment.
It'd be nothing but love, right?
Exactly. Nothing but love and peace. And not only for humans, but for every living being. I mean, the humans would be more empathetic, more compassionate than what they are at the moment. Not that all humans are like that, but a majority who make the laws, the rules, the government, and the higher ups, they need to be very, very careful because those are the guys making the rules and making these protocols which are roughing up the commoners, if I may say so.
Hmm. No, I agree with that. I think, but they're doing it for, again, those that feeling of authority, leadership. Some people are good leaders that are in those roles, and some of them are not. They're all doing it for their individual wants. And again, whatever chemicals are being released into their bodies, they're thriving off of that adrenaline, dopamine, um, uh, endorphins,
Exactly,
oxytocin, all of
cortisol,
those things, right?
yes.
Like they're running off those highs, and they can either use it for good or bad, and you see it in different countries all the time.
True, totally agree on that. So the next question I would like to ask you is, when you started the podcast, at one point of time, you were really looking for sponsorship, but now you're a changed man. Has the situation changed? And what kind of positive vibrations did you discover sitting on the chair while you were doing podcast when you discovered that entire change from your earlier self to when you were not looking for sponsorships?
Well, when I first started it, it was like a way to be the entrepreneur, right? Like to be a successful entrepreneur, because I started believing, which I still do believe, is that there is a resistance out there that is trying to win the day, that is trying to make you that is trying to demotivate you. And when I realized this, right, like I started putting pressure on myself to learn everything that I could about marketing and podcasting and things like that, sponsorships, and I focused my entire energy on that. Like I wasn't going to allow the resistance to win, but my main goal was to go on my own, to be this big podcaster, to prove to people that you can change your reality, in a sense that I'm gonna, I'm you know middle middle class American. I'm gonna change this and make this into the next Joe Rogan. And I just focused my entire energy on that. And again, I was looking for the externals. I was looking for things that weren't necessarily true to my nature, and true to myself. And I kept hitting walls, and it affected me personally. It affected my energy. It affected my family. It affected everything. And it got to a point where my wife was like, "We can't do this anymore. You can't do this anymore. It's not, this isn't good for us." And I had to take a step back and make a choice where, I love podcasting. It's something, and she knows that. And she's like, you're never going to stop podcasting, but you have to change the way that you do it, or you change the way your message is. And
Mm,
I decided that, I was going to change who I was and how I approached it. And it wasn't necessarily about becoming this huge success in it and starting, creating a monetized podcast. It was more so of my knowledge. It was all right. I have an opportunity here to meet with people that are doing great things in the world, and I have an opportunity to grow and expand myself. And once I made that decision, the universe just started working in weird ways, and I started meeting um, publicists and marketers of the mystical types of books, not necessarily like your traditional business entrepreneurship stuff,
mm,
and like consciousness awareness and consciousness raising and things like that. Um, and I've been on this quest ever since to raise my own. And I mean, it's just been this expansion of awareness to meet that higher self. And I can't explain, I can't put into words what
mhm.
how I feel about that, but it's something that I suggest that everyone just become more aware. Like once you become aware of the observer, like that starts pulling you towards those mystical types of mindsets. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just like you can't put it into words. But it's like once you start experiencing the universe in a different way, it
Mhm.
feeds into your soul, it feeds into your higher self, and it just gives you inspiration to do other things.
I would totally agree with you, Trey, and I totally sink in what you have said. I'd like to share something about my own self. Like when we started this channel, You Are Invincible, the goal was to inspire and encourage as many lives as possible. That was one prime goal. And along the way, somewhere maybe it's just a new channel. We just started. We launched it on August 27th of this year, and but the work, the back end, everything started in sometime in April and May. So when we logged in, and in a month's time, I could see the subscriber base going up. And that's when that thought of encouraging and inspiring took a beating. And that's when I started thinking, oh, why isn't the subscriber, increasing? What happened? It should go like whoop, whoop, whoop. And for like a week, 10 days, I delved into my lower self where I was completely anxious. And to an extent, it was playing on my mind. And I wouldn't say it was maybe a very superficial layer of depressive state of mind. And I had to take a seat and I had to think about it. Why am I thinking this way? Why am I feeling this way? Because it was somewhere affecting me, and obviously it was affecting my family because I was giving out the energy and the vibrations which were not of the higher self. And I sat down and I was like, okay, like you very beautifully said, the resistance out there. when we walk the path of the higher self and we want to give out the best, to bring out the best in other people's lives through our own self. Not that we are the magnanimous, know it all souls, but in our own tribe, like we're connecting today because we belong to the same tribe who want to elevate other people's lives, in the best way possible. And I was like, dude, why? Where is that thought? I was thinking to encourage and inspire. Why am I getting into the statistics? Why am I getting into the how many subscribers and how many people have seen my episodes? And that's when maybe a shift happened. And my team and we got in touch. I mean, it just automatically happened, and we had interviews lined up. And since then, I have interviewed maybe 15 odd dignitaries, and you're the next one. And all of us belong to the higher realm of thought processes, the higher frequency. As you rightly said, the universe starts to conspire when you sync yourself and you forget about, okay, I need these many subscribers, I need these many people to start watching my episodes or podcasts in your space. And it's beautiful. I mean, the way things line up, the way people come in touch with you. And at times I was thinking, did I ever think about taking an interview on this channel? And I was like, no, dude, I did not. But now it's happening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
man.
yeah, I mean, so yeah,
I think
it's
I was writing my own questions there for a while. Like I would at the very early episodes, like I would write questions to myself and say, "Oh, this is from the audience." And then I read them and say, "Oh," and I would make up names and say, "Oh, Ashley from blah 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 wants to know this and that." And then, I mean, just like, but then again, like I'm here, like I can fully say that I put in the work, I put it out, and I'm understanding that what your work and what energy that you put into it, like your beingness goes with that episode, and it will attract those that are like that, and it will bring the people to you that are meant to. Some people just aren't ready to hear this type of stuff. They're not awakened. They're not in the mindset that we are. And I do it for myself, if anything. Like I just do the work, and I try to find the uh, the beauty in the work. I mean, it's art that what we're doing. You know
yes,
what I mean? Like this
yes,
connection between you and I. This conversation is a thing of art, and it will last forever. Because I
yes,
fully understand that what we put out into the world is recorded. Everything is recorded
yes.
in the history of the world, and the energy that you portray to people, the energy that you like let out into the world, um, it attracts people like you. So like, I'm not necessarily, I know that my work is helping those that are at the same vibration. I know that it's helping people that need to hear it when they need to hear it. However, for me, it's more so of me letting go and letting God. It's me letting go of those expectations, my attachments to things, and just having faith that I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't need to put those external rewards on things. Like it doesn't matter to
Mm,
me if I'm the best podcaster in the world. What matters to me is that I reach that certain level of, I can raise my consciousness, that I can raise my consciousness and achieve enlightenment, and demonstrate that to my kids, and love them and love people, um, all the time, and love the good and the bad. Because at the end of the day, there is no good or bad. It's just, it's
true.
just it's what we call it. And just to love this experience and be in it. And, just, I could talk about this all day.
Sure, all yours.
You know what I'm talking about, man. It's just
Yes,
trying to reach that
yes.
awareness.
Yes, and when you say that, the people are not ready to accept this, or maybe they're not in that wavelength, there have been so many good wishes and so many comments that have come along us during this journey of hardly 3.5, 4 months, that even if I didn't realize how important or what value you're creating through this channel, through my episodes and interviews, but there have been immeasurable number of people who have contacted and messaged or on Facebook or even on the YouTube channel that you guys are doing great work. We need something like this,
Mhm.
something positive. And I was like, okay, even if from the surface level, you don't get people straight on your face, you're doing fantastic work. But then there are a lot of people who may not speak about it, but they're watching you and they're gaining so much insight. They're gaining so much, and the best part is, we are not doing it on the perspective that, okay, I'm gonna have a million subscribers, I'm gonna have reach this goal, and I'm gonna touch this, monetize this, blah blah blah. But as you beautifully said, it's about giving our time, giving ourselves out, so that people become aware in their own life, so that people they delve into their own self, so that they can have a beautiful life. And we
Hmm.
just maybe just being a catalyst for everybody out there and doing our best possible. And so beautifully you said about becoming self-aware, our own self, becoming alert. And one more thing that comes to my mind right now about talking about self-awareness, each time I have done an episode or each time I have interviewed a personality, after the interview or after the episode, the peace, the tranquility, the thrill that I feel in my heart and my being is beyond words. I mean, I can't, like you said, you can't express it through words. It is you're there, you're in the zone, and that moment of happiness is incomparable to anything else, anything materialistic out there.
Yeah, no, I get it all the time. I get it. I was talking to my friend Paul Selig. He's an author of the book Alchemy, and the first time I
Okay.
experienced that internal flame, right, that internal heart
Yes.
vibration,
Yes.
was at one of his events where he came and spoke to a room of people. And like when you're connected to the things that are higher than yourself, when you're connected to the true things that your higher self is pushing you towards, like you'll feel it. That feeling that you feel is like yourself, your higher self pushing you in the direction that you need to go. And like I experience that, right? Like I kind of, whenever I'm doing something that I think I want to do, like if I don't get that feeling, if I don't feel that excitement, if I don't feel that vibration, then I know it's probably not the best for me, or I need to,
Mm-hmm.
change directions and pivot and go into a different direction. But again, a lot of what I've learned is like when I trust God, when I give it all to God, when I say that is when I live in the full moment, whether it's a good or bad uh, emotion, like I totally feel it and let it go to God, and then I allow my faith in that to point me in the direction that I need to go. And it's helped me in meditation. It's helped me in life. It's helped me in producing these episodes. I mean, I would never have thought that I would be sitting here with you having a conversation about higher consciousness, about our goals, right? About how we live our lives with our families and how we express our loves. But here we are. I put my faith in the universe. I put my faith in God, whatever you call that. It doesn't necessarily have to be my God that you call God, but that
True.
that higher self, that higher consciousness, like you can. It's just funny once you start putting faith in that and you start putting that positivity out in the world. The more that you love, more love will find you.
Totally, totally. I dot that as well. So, viewers, we are speaking with Trey Downes, who is having a podcast named Superior Self. He is an amazing person and has delved into the higher consciousness through his podcast. There are more than 150 episodes, and you have to hear them all because they are just brilliant. And if you want to get in touch with him, you can get in touch with him on his website called www.yoursuperiorself.com, which is given in the ticker. And we're having this amazing conversation. So, Trey, the next question I would like to ask you is, when you say your small self was creating goals and these goals would never end, so is it when you finally reach your higher self, do you stop creating these goals or do they just become easier to achieve?
Yeah, the small self, you can never satisfy that hunger, that appetite, right? Like it's always going to go to the next thing. Like think about this when you're a baby, right? And I've learned this
Hmm.
from um, Dr. David Hawkins, who I've just got done reading his book, and this is going to be added value to you guys. Power versus Force.
Power versus force. Okay.
Dr. Hawkins is I can't stop reading his stuff, but it's like when you're a baby, right? Like, you start walking, you start crawling, you start walking. You're like, this isn't, this room here isn't good enough for me. It's not going to be great until I get into the next room. And then you get into the next room and it's like, these two rooms aren't good enough for me. I have to go to the whole entire house. And you go to the next house. And then, um, and then once you grow up, you're like, all right, this isn't good enough for me. I have to, go to this school. You get that school and you graduate, you go to college. This is, it's always adding those layers of want. It's always adding those layers of need. And you're never going to satisfy that. That is a small self. That is what we've been born with. That is the prefrontal cortex or the frontal cortex. And it's what we evolved over for survival for us, right? As human beings, it's what it is. It's just the brain. It's part of the brain. It's what separates us from everything else. And
True.
once you realize that, like, you don't understand the freedom that comes with that. Like, you don't understand the amount of empowerment that it gives you, because like now when you meditate and you start seeing the thoughts come across, just like this ticker here at the bottom, those are your thoughts.
Yeah.
The silence
True.
is the higher self. That is what you truly are, the consciousness. And Dr. Hawkins talks about that in his book and in his lectures. He's like, you go out into the woods and you hear the silence. Because of that silence, you can hear the birds chirping. That those birds chirping is your mind. That is your smaller self. Understand that the greater silence is who you truly are. And until you can understand that, it brings a whole different idea of meditation. So going back to the higher self, I think the higher self, I don't think there's any goals with that. I think the more that you penetrate that higher self, you start becoming more aware of different levels, right? Like different levels of that. So if you go inward and keep going inward, it's like the ocean too. He uses this example in his book where the ocean, the top of the layer, the waves are the thoughts, and the small self. You're never going to have a waveless ocean. It's always going to have waves. It's just that's what the ocean is. But the deeper you go, the calmer it gets, and that's kind of like this, right? You start getting into deeper and deeper levels of the self, and it's like areas you never explored before. It's the self that you've never seen before. So it's like, I think the goal is to experience that more. I don't think you ever get to the center of the higher self. I think it's just you start experiencing new levels.
Dimensions.
You know what I mean? And you experience new levels,
Yeah.
and you just continue to keep walking forward and keep going and going and going until it's over. And then you leave this world, and then you realize that this wasn't your life at all. That this isn't who you are. This is just kind of a facade. So it's just
Mm.
I
So
don't know if that
if
makes sense.
this were, yes, it does. I mean, if I want to add on that, or if I want to ask you another question on that, when we say, for example, this lower self, the smaller self makes these goals, the so-called goals, when we start tapping the higher self, so when we are in that zone, wouldn't it be correct, or there's no right wrong, but what do you say about this? That when we are in the higher state of life, we want that state to be seen in everybody around us. So wouldn't that also be a kind of a goal to have a larger tribe with the higher consciousness and who have the peace and love?
Mm, I I would say that's probably still a part of the ego, because you want to influence someone else,
Mm,
right? Like
right.
I can't control you. You can't control me. I wish that I could, like my wife doesn't have the same beliefs that I try to influence her, but you have to realize that they're
Mm,
all on their own journey, right? Like it's not our responsibility for them, because they have to experience things in their lives that are going to trigger those events, that are going to trigger that self-awareness. That's why they keep coming back, right? Is to experience it. It might take 90 lifetimes, it may take 100 lifetimes, but they have to
mm,
become more aware on their own, right? So the people that we're talking to right now are probably on the same level or consciousness level that we're at. That's why we attract them.
right.
But for me, it like you said, the goals, I think, is like you want to feel that feeling all the time. Like I want to feel that bliss. I want to be blissed out all the time, but I can't, because the ego keeps pulling me back down, and I fall asleep. I
Mm,
fall asleep when I start feeling the emotions of like anger, fear. The ego is all just trying to be like, shut up. Let's not think about, the greater good of mankind. Let's not think about loving your neighbor. Let's think about the things that you have to do today to get things done. Let's think about, oh, that's a deadline that you have that is coming up down the street or down the road. Let's think about the paper that you have to write. Let's think about the promotion that you want to get. Let's think about how bad your boss treats you. I mean, these are all things that the ego
Mm,
tried to put in front of us so that we're distracted, and it's all fake because everything that is happening in your life, one, you're where you're at today because of the choices that you made, and you have to be honest with yourself and realize that, like, you're sitting where you're at today because of all the choices that you made. I'm sitting where I'm at today because all the collective choices that I made, and I'm okay with that. But I also have to realize that I can change that as well. I can change that by realizing that everything's happening for me. So, like, when I have those negative thoughts, one, I can say, all right, that's the ego. But then there's also a lesson that is behind that. It's gonna expand me as far as my awareness. That it's gonna expand me in my knowing and expand me into my experience. Right. So I would
right.
say the ego. You just have to be aware of it. And another thing is that the ego, don't look at it as a bad thing. Look at it as your teacher. Right. Look at it as something that's outside of yourself that is trying to win the day. And the only way you can win it is by realizing that it's not your thoughts, and that
Mm,
you can neutralize it by having habits, meditation, working out, eating right, doing things like that that will give you your power back. So that way you can kind of, you know, quiet that voice a little bit.
right, right. Yeah, each and every one can have their own ways to connecting with the higher self, own ways of connecting, getting away from this so-called ego, that we all have, and that's so wonderfully shared by you because at the end of it, the ego and the lower states of ours, the life tendencies that each one of us has, greed, hunger, foolishness, they always pull us down when you're in that state of anxiety or in that state of uncertainty that what's going to happen, and that's when we lose ourselves in terms of not realizing that we have the potential to be the superior self all the time, not the egoistic superior self, but the higher consciousness. So yeah, I hope that more and more people are able to understand it from their own life, and they will always have people like us to guide them. Maybe guide is a too strong a word, but act as a catalyst. But as you rightly said, everybody has their own journey, so we can't force them. And there's a famous anecdote which says, states, you can take the horse to the lake, but you can't force it to drink water. So unless and until the horse is thirsty, if
Yeah.
they are thirsty for higher self,
Yeah. You can make them
they'll take
thirsty,
to it.
right? You can make them thirsty, but
Exactly.
everything is so subjective, right? Like even God is subjective, right? Like everything is viewed in the eye of the beholder, and it's like that is there's a
Mm,
reason for that. That is a reason for that because it's our own journey. It's our own individual journeys, and we have to realize the beauty in that. Like, my journey is not your journey. I'm not going to experience the same things you're going to experience, but once you start feeling the bliss, once you start feeling the current pull you in the direction of higher enlightenment, like, I can't even explain to you, like, the feeling you get. Like, things don't matter anymore, right? I mean, I'm saying, like, the external things don't really matter anymore. The rewards, the awards, the recognition doesn't matter anymore because you know that the work that you're truly doing is expanding yourself in directions that you've never seen before, that you ever felt before.
right.
All that programming that you've had, growing up is starting to be deleted, and you're starting to rewrite that programming, and it's a wonderful thing.
Exactly. No two ways about it. Imagine we are actually breaking the barriers that were built around us. All the barriers that we had while growing up, the peers, this is the way things need to be done, or this is how the world is, this is how you need to see things. But to be able to elevate yourself to a higher frequency, you're actually breaking your own barriers. You becoming like as vast as the sky. And to have that magnanimity is a
Mhm.
bliss which is inexplainable, which is what I feel. You're so right. I mean, through our own journeys, we are able to expand. I have been able to what I was maybe 5 months before, and who I am right now is a drastic change. And when I think about it, I was like, oh, dude, there's so many things that have changed internally. And that's not the ego who's talking, but that's the real me who has started to realize what really is intrinsically important to grow and expand and move ahead in life. So yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the same person. I mean, you're gonna continue to change. I'm not the same person that I was 6 months ago. I think there's a saying. I don't know who said it, but it's like the same man doesn't step in the same river twice. Just because
Yes.
it's always flowing, right? Like that's how
Yes.
life is. It's always flowing. You're either you're either scared and hiding from change, or you're brave and you embrace it, and you realize that through change you develop and you learn and you gain more knowledge, and that's what helps you expand your consciousness.
Absolutely true. Absolutely. That brings us to the next question. When you say to be in the moment with your body and mind, do you stop listening to your inner talk and pick up the signs from the universe? Or do we work on ourselves step by step to achieve that moment when we start acknowledging the signs given by the universe?
Mm, that's a good question. So I'm still trying to figure that out. But as far as being in the moment, I think that is the most important thing. Again, the ego tries to steal that from us because it's always trying to tell us what we need to be
Mm,
doing. Like when I'm, when I'm enjoying my kids, like I'll have like, these thoughts of you're supposed to be studying because I'm going back to school, right? Like
okay, wonderful.
trying to get my degree in psychology, and it's telling me I need to be doing these certain things, and or I remember one time I was giving my kid a bath, and I'm just looking at her, and I'm like, man, this is why we keep coming back. This is why we keep coming back to this plane, because it's to experience
Mm,
this love, this innocence, this moment right
yeah,
here.
affection.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, the affection, right? Like the body,
Yeah.
and the moment is so precious, and that is where eternity is. Time doesn't,
Mm,
there is no time in the moment, right? It's only until you get pulled out of it that you realize there is time. And
mm,
it's a beautiful thing. It's just, I try to look at it as, I take every, when I'm not focused in the moment, I try to refocus myself in the moment by experiencing the emotions and the thoughts that I'm having and just letting it go, and just try to, give it back to God
breathe
and
in
just
and let
allow.
go.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Just let it calm, let it go, because I mean it can be overbearing, and a lot of the emotional reactions that you have isn't from the moment; it's from everything else that's added up to that, that's built up to that moment. And I try to fully place myself in it. So when I'm in the moment, like right now, I'm talking to you, like I try to be fully here, and
Right.
and not be afraid of what could happen, right? Like you have these questions, you have an order that you're going to ask these questions. I have answers, whatever there may be. However, I don't prep myself for that. I try to be fully in the moment and allow
In the
my
moment.
knowledge, right? My knowledge and my experience do the talking for me. I like a lot of the time, like even authors, right? I had a conversation with Stephen Kotler. He's an author of one of my favorite books, Stealing Fire, and he talks about flow states, neuroscience stuff, which I'm a big nerd on. And
Right.
he talks about, when he gets writing, sometimes his writing comes from, he doesn't know where. Like he doesn't, it's a source. It's like coming from a different source. And that's how I feel like sometimes in my episodes, like right now, like it's not Trey who's speaking. It's Trey's higher self that is flowing through me, that is speaking to you, that is saying these words because of that energy, because of that expansion, because of that awareness, because of the consciousness. That is the message. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
when I have a
mm,
conversation with you on the street, it's not Trey. People call me Trey. That's what they call me. That's a label they've given me, but I am not Trey, that being.
right. It's so true. I mean, one of the other interviews that you were saying, you really believe in this logic of being in the flow and really going with it and being in the moment. I mean, it is so important when we are in the flow. This right now is what is the most important thing, because the past is, it's gone and we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We're just not even there.
Yeah.
So what we have right now, this now, and if we are completely 100% in sync with the mind, body, and spirit and soul with the higher self. I mean, that is just a different feeling altogether. And that I don't think you can get that kind of a feeling in any materialistic thing. I mean,
Mhm.
while you're in a podcast, while I'm making an interview, or while I'm acting in front of the camera, I'm an actor by profession. So when I'm in that zone at that point of time, and when you sync yourself up with your inner self and you're right there, that's the moment when the real you comes out, and which is blissful, which is just a different ball game altogether.
Oh, no, that's the
You
true
know,
self. That is it's just so interesting, like it's just the neuroscience that is behind it, like the brain, that it's just like you were talking about. Like if you think about it, like you think that we are this I, the small self, the small s, because people call us Trey, and it's programming from growing up. It's like you think about your kids, um, don't do that, or you.
mm,
And so you develop this sense of I, this sense of self, because of the brain. The brain needs a self map. It needs this identity to say what is self, what do I protect. So it creates barriers in its mind and says, all right, this is Trey. I am Trey. I am the I am the self. I need to create barriers now for protection. And anything that tries to
right.
attack these barriers is danger. So depending on where you grew up in this world, that barrier might
Mm,
be further out than most. Some of them might be small, like mine was growing up. Like I was in a bubble, so like a lot of things were attacking my barriers that weren't necessarily bad. It just was something that I was programmed to think was bad. And once you start becoming more aware of the programming and think to yourself that I am not this, I am not the small self, I am a higher self, I am the I am the larger I am I am the one that is connected to all. That's when the growth starts. That is the first step. And I highly recommend that you start gaining that momentum by reading knowledge. Start with some books, right? Like Power versus Force is a great one, the one that I just recommended,
right,
because it gives you an actual
right,
tool for measuring your consciousness. It allows you to actually measure your consciousness by giving you some tools that you can put in your practice daily. Um, Also, like Edgar Casey books, Robert Monroe, um, Stephen Kotler. I mean, things like that. Just start reading and follow what makes
right.
you curious, not what you love, but what makes you curious. Because once you start reading the stuff that makes you curious, then you'll start becoming more and more into it. And that's when the love develops for something that truly fires you up.
True. And it develops and you expand and your perception towards life starts to change in such a different perspective that we are no longer in a bubble. We're not like that frog in a small well who thinks he's the king of the world, you know. So reading,
Yeah.
yeah, viewers, I hope you're listening carefully to what Trey is sharing with us, because it's very, very important for all of you to be curious, because that is something that will develop you from inside out rather than looking outside and learning things. That is another way of doing it. But when you start working on your own self from inside, that's a different ball game. So Trey, that brings us to the next question. This is actually interesting. I'm sure you'll have more than one.
Mhm.
But one incident where the universe surprised you to make you believe in yourself and told you that you were on the right path.
Mm.
It's quite interesting, right?
No, because I got some interesting questions or answers for you. I just don't think that you probably think I'm a nut job when I get done telling you. So I keep seeing the number 444
Okay.
everywhere. Like, so I I
That's
I don't know
synchronic
why.
numbers.
Yeah. I don't know why. I just, when I look at my watch, it'll say 444. When I go for a run, I come back, it would tell me the time, was 444. Um, and so I was on Nancy Year Out show, and we actually Googled it, and it's
Hmm.
it means like there is an angel telling you that you're on your path, which is, it's pretty amazing. I was I don't know. I don't know if it's the law of attraction working for me, because now that I know that, I see it everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, so I see I at least see two fours everywhere that I go. It's just crazy. Um, another story is I was doing a meditation, and so I was doing a meditation where you can lift the veil and have a conversation with a past loved one. And so I did the
Mm-hmm.
entire meditation, and I got to a place where I was, an alpha as far as um, mind states. And I was able to have a
Mm-hmm.
conversation with my grandfather, and he was there. And this is right when I was getting into spirituality. This is right when I was getting to meditation and these types of ideas. And we were having a conversation, and through the guided meditation, they were like, "All right, so your past loved one is going to give you a gift, and this gift is going to mean something to you."
Mm-hmm.
And so he gives me this knife, this old style American made knife with like it's wooden, it's carved, and it has like brass ends. And basically told me that I was going to go down my own path and I was going to create my own path through this knife because I'm going to have to do a lot of cutting. I'm going to have to create my own path. Basically a metaphor for I'm going to have to go out in the woods
Right.
and make a path. So a couple of weeks go by, and I'm at my in-laws' house, and I see this knife on the steps, and it's
Wow.
exactly the same knife that my grandfather handed me in this meditation. And I look at it, and I'm like, I didn't think anything of it. So I pick it up, and I'm like, man, it's weird. And I put it back down. It's my father-in-law's. I guess one of his parents gave it to him, and he's kept it. And I didn't think anything of it. And then I started reading this book about meditations and what we can bring forth from the other side, or from the um, the non-physical when we go into these meditations. And it kind of like I had this aha moment. I was like, I brought that knife into my own reality to show me, to prove to me that I can do this. And so
Mm-hmm.
like now I'm on this kick of like, what else can I do? And I just had a recent one, like one with my grandmother, about a
Okay.
comb, right? So she just gave me a comb. I don't know. And I just like 2 days ago, I found a comb that, it might not sound important, but I don't have combs in my house, right? I just don't own a
Mm.
comb. And like one of those old school, like long ones, like this long,
Right.
like
Yes.
teeth
Yes.
on it. Like I don't have combs, and,
Yeah.
and for some reason I found it in my son's room. So it's like it's pretty amazing. Like that's proven to myself that I can bring things from the non-physical into physical. That I am on my path. That I am creating my path, and to keep going, to keep finding that that going inward to find my higher self, to keep doing the things that I'm doing that is necessary. It's just like reinforcement,
Mm.
right? Jesus had
Right.
the 12
Yes.
disciples where we don't have that. So it's like, you got to do everything you can to do things like this to kind of help you down your road. Because down here on the earth's plane, it's tough. There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of people telling you that you shouldn't be doing the things that you're doing because you're going against society. And again, your body and your
Yeah.
chemicals and your brain chemicals that are provided in your mind
Right.
are basically there for your survival. And when you start doing things that are outside of what society says is normal, but is true to you, people
Mm.
don't feel comfortable with that. So it's like these things that I'm doing are kind of pushing me down that path and saying, keep going.
Mm.
You're not there yet. You're doing what you need to be doing. There's more to come.
That's really fascinating, Trey, and I totally sync with what you're saying because I myself I see the synchronic numbers every single day, at least 4 or 5 times during the day, whether it's 18, 18, 08, 08, or numbers like that. And I was intrigued about. I've made an episode on the same synchronic numbers, and I read about it, and it's the same thing. It's like somewhere the universe is guiding us and telling us, "Ki, dude, you're on the right path. Just don't lose hope. Just don't feel that you're alone. But I or we or however you want to portray it as is right along with you, and just continue going. Whatever the exterior is showing you, don't worry about that. But your spirit is on the right path.
Yeah.
It's
And
just intriguing,
this
seriously.
is the book that I was reading, that Where Did You Go by
Where did you
Christina
go,
Rasmussen.
Christina?
So yeah, this is the book
Right.
that
I
I had that aha moment because it talks about near death experiences, um,
Wow. Okay.
which you know um, has been a big influential part of my life. Is Dr. Ray Moody's work at the University of Virginia. They have a
Mm-hmm.
great parapsychology department over there, and I suggest that you guys hit them up over there and read more of their work, because there are theories about near death experiences.
Oh yeah,
Um,
astral projections, they're also known
mhm.
as.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Dr. Moody has done fantastic work in that realm, and I can't get enough of their work over there. So, yeah, this is the book that
Mm,
kind of solidified what I was doing as well.
it's amazing. I mean, it's just a reminder for us to that, buddy, you're doing right. Just keep going. You're on the higher self
Yeah, I don't know if you can
path,
see it or
which
not. So,
is
like
just
behind me here is just like this a huge like library of books,
wow.
like
Okay.
of just books that have helped me along my way. So it's not just one book; it's like many, many, many books.
Right.
But you have to
Yes.
keep. The one thing I would say is keep an open mind. Um, to everything that you read. Don't become like this, be a skeptic, but an open-minded skeptic, like an
Yes.
intellectual skeptic, and find things that feel right to you.
I totally agree to that. I mean, I'd like to share something which my father has been telling me and has always told me over the years that even if you have a plethora of knowledge, be like that cup of water which is half full. Always be open to ideas, always be open to knowledge, always be, don't be a dogmatic person. Okay, this is what I know, this is what is right, and this is how it is. But just expand your life so that more knowledge comes to you, you expand your inner self, your higher self, and you see the universe in a very different perspective. So that's something which, that's exactly what you also shared right now. And it is so important rather than being having the blinders, how the horses have during a derby race. I mean, that
Yeah, man.
life would be awful doing that.
And another thing, if somebody does say they know it all, don't listen to them, because they don't know what they're
Yeah,
talking about. Nobody knows
exactly.
everything. It's always expansion. It's adding.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like it's not. Everyone doesn't. I mean, I will never fully understand this universe while I'm here. I can only get
Absolutely.
close to it. You know.
I second your thoughts completely. So I would love to keep talking with you, man, but the paucity of time, I have this last question, and this is something that the viewers will be very, very intrigued to know from your perspective. What message would you like to give to our viewers and people out there for a more positive and fruitful 2021? We all know how this year has been for all of us globally, and what are your thoughts, or how do you view, and what can the viewers and even myself can take back from your perspective towards the next year?
Even though this 2020 has been this trying time for us, there's always a lesson in it, and you
Yes.
can apply this to your life as well. I, when you're in negative feelings, when you're in negative emotions, you always look at it as a negative because you haven't gotten through it. But every time, if you look back on your life, right, I'm sure you're glad that everything's happened for a reason. I'm sure you're glad that it's happened for something, for some lesson that you've gotten out of it. Like I sit here today, and even all the tragedies that I've had in my life, I'm glad that I had them, because it made me who I am today. And
True.
going into 2021, I look at it as an opportunity to go in it and be positive, because what we're experiencing today has just made us stronger. It has just made us more aware of what really truly matters in our lives. And if you're looking at it as a negative, you haven't gotten the message yet. You haven't gotten that idea that life is trying to help you learn. Um, the universe never happens, and it always happens for you. That is the mantra that I live by. Everything happens
Hmm.
for a reason, even if it's painful. It is because you've created some type of attachment to something. Your ego has created an attachment to something that you think is going to help your survival. When in doubt, the universe never hurts you. It always helps you. So in the end, you will figure it out. You will figure out what the lesson is, but you have to release the attachment to what you think is helping you survive. And in the end, the universe cares and loves for you no matter what. And you just
Hmm.
have to become more aware that the only thing in front of you is opportunity.
That's beautifully said. Because at the end of it, if we don't look at life, that life is happening for us rather than it's the other way around. we won't be able to grow. And you're so right. I mean, this year of 2020 has been, if I look at, to be honest, I haven't seen the negatives in it, but yes, a lot of tragedies have happened. People have lost their lives and people have lost their jobs. But other than that, Mother Nature has healed. She was aching, she was in pain since so many years, but now the way Mother Nature is, she is blissful. I mean, you look at the skies. I mean, we are in Bombay, in India. So when I used to look at the sky outside, it was full of smog, full of smoke. But now the beauty, the crescent, the colors that are there, it's like you see a rainbow in the sky every few weeks, or you see the different colors. I mean, that's such a beautiful sign. That's one of the positives. I mean, people have rediscovered their time with their families, where they didn't even know whether the kid is waking up at what time, going to school, and blah blah blah. They have come
Hmm.
closer. I mean, there's so many positives. And the other aspect which you shared about the ego attaching itself till the time we learn from that situation is so true. If we attach our ego to something, and it'll keep coming back unless and until we change our perspective, unless and until we understand, oh, this is something I need to change. You know, that aspect has also happened in 2020. So many positives. And yeah, 2021 is going to be a completely beautiful year for the people who have realized
Hmm.
in 2020, for the people who are still learning, and respect to their journey. Sooner or later, they should understand that to go with the flow and to dig deeper. But
Yeah.
very well said, Trey, very
Hmm.
well said.
Yeah. 2020 should, or 2021 should be the year of detachment. That's what it should be. The year of detachment.
Hmm. People should write it down on their walls, the year of detachment.
Detach.
Yeah, which points to an arrow, absolute happiness. Detach, move
Detach.
towards
Yeah.
absolute happiness.
Absolutely. Detach and an arrow.
Exactly, exactly. So, viewers, I hope you've had an amazing time, because I have enjoyed this conversation with Trey and it has been beautiful. And I'm sure all of you have enjoyed this. And if you want to get in touch with Trey, please do get in touch. His website is given here on the ticker, which is www.yoursuperiorself.com. And Trey, would you like to share something with the viewers or something additional you want to say? All yours.
Sure. No, no, I think that you know, I like I said, I don't know it all. I just know what I've experienced. It's all, my journey, and I hope that
Yes.
if anything, this conversation has made you curious about yours and what you can obtain for yourself. If you guys want to go to my website, yoursuperiorself.com, you can leave me a message. It goes right to my inbox. I'll leave you I'll send a message back to you. You can go to my Instagram at tdowns80, where you can kind of see behind the scenes of my life and what I'm trying to do. I'm a big believer in fitness. I'm a big believer in family and faith, and you can kind of see behind the scenes over there and see what I'm up to. But I would just end it with this: that the attachments that we have to the job that you hate, to the relationship that you hate, to everything that you think you need for survival is just the ego saying you need that so that you can continue along the path that you're on. And until you have faith to detach, and until you have the faith to say that's not true, life can't give you the opportunity that you want. So I'll leave it at
Wow.
that.
That's beautiful. That's really amazing, Trey. So thank you so much for being with us, Trey. And viewers, thank you so much for being with us. We will keep having our conversations with Trey whenever he has the time on other topics as well. But it has been seriously wonderful having you on You Are Invincible. You have enlightened me on a lot of things tonight. India time, your time is obviously morning, but I cherish the time that we have had today, and I'm so glad to have connected with you, just enlarging our tribe of our souls who are just trying our best to elevate other lives to their higher self. And you're doing a brilliant part in that, Ray. And congratulations on your podcast and Superior Self. You're doing fantastic, and I hope we keep connecting on this
Yeah,
time and again.
absolutely. Definitely. I'll have to have you on my show too.
Wonderful. Cool. Thank you, viewers. This is Namaste from India. Namaste. This is the way we greet somebody in an Indian language. It's called Namaste with joining our hands. So it has been fantastic, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Take care.